The time is 8:39 a.m. and the Oregon Board of Physical Therapy is entering public session.
Erin,
Here.
Sandra,
Here.
Hoku,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Susan,
Here.
Erica,
Here.
Dwight,
Here.
for staff, Michelle, Sherry,
Here.
Gayla,
Here.
Sarah,
Here.
Joanna.
Here.
For the record, we do have members of the public present. Thank you for being here. As we do at the start of every meeting, just a touchstone to our statutory purpose to protect the public health, safety, and welfare for all Oregonians by maintaining standards for quality care, professional skill, and competence through the effective regulation of the practice of physical therapy. Here is today's agenda for the meeting. And the first item, for members of the public, these materials are posted on our website if you wanted to download those so you can follow along. And with that, I will advance to the first agenda item, board motions as a result of executive session.
This is Sandra. In case number PT 836-12/23, I make a motion to offer settlement for a 2-year suspension with conditions for reinstatement.
I second the motion.
Michelle,
Are
we doing?
Yes, and I'll note for the record, the motion was seconded by Hoku. I'll do a roll call vote. Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
All members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
In case number PT 815-06/23, I make a motion to close the case.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next case.
This is Sandra. In case number PT 816-06/23, I make a motion to close the case.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
All members have voted, Madam Chair. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next case.
In case number PT 823-08/23, I make a motion to close the case.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted and the motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next case.
In case number PT 828-9/23, I make a motion to close the case.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next case.
In case number PT 840-12/23, I make a motion of finding a violation of ORS 688.140 (2) OAR 0020. That was a zero before the 452. 2i and 2l, and offer settlement agreement requiring completion of board-approved courses.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Aaron,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next case.
In case number PT 848-2/24, I make a motion to close the case.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Aaron,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next case.
In case numbers PT 849-02/24, I make a motion to ratify the administrative closure of this case pursuant to delegated authority.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Aaron,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next case.
We're done.
Oh, good.
There aren't any other board motions. There's no more motions as a result of executive session.
Okay. Madam Chair, the next item on the agenda is the consideration of the consent agenda items, inclusive of the minutes, the ratification report, and the director's report and financials. The materials on that, I want to note that you'll see that the ratification report is much longer than you typically see. It is broken into the two reports. So the first 2 pages are the new and temporary licenses or permits that are issued that you're used to seeing. And of course, because this is a renewal year, the next many pages are inclusive of the renewal applications that you are ratifying. In the director's report, once I can scroll down far enough, just a couple of highlights. You do begin to see these financials are through February of the year, and so you can see that we're starting to have positive net income during the renewal season. These numbers will be much more significant once you see the report from March, and a little bit less opportunity to do education and outreach just because of the volume of renewals and the amount of time that it takes us, and some projections of where we're headed right after renewals, which will be the getting on the schedule again the upgrade to the new licensing system that was deferred until after renewal, and then work on with the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that is meeting with all state agencies for collaborating on further developing and expanding all agencies' DEI plans and how that dovetails into strategic planning. So when we get to the next meeting, there will be a number of meetings and development in those areas. And we should have more substantive material to bring to you at the next meeting. I think maybe one other highlight will be that as I scroll through here, maybe here, when you look at the totals of active licensees, I just want to give a heads up that typically in a renewal season, we lose what has historically been anywhere from 13 to 17% of active licenses, because we have that many people that were only here, typically travelers, as they were passing through, and they don't renew those licenses. So we'll see where our relative drop off is on the next report, but that number will drop and then we'll build back up to about the same point, if not higher. And that's part of what you can see in this table, that the growth, even with the drop off and renewal, there's an offset by new licensees that come into the Oregon market, if you will, that keeps those numbers steadily moving up, even with that drop off at this point in the biennium. So with those highlights, Madam Chair, I would leave it for any question or any notation of any errors or corrections on minutes or any of the other materials. Not seeing any questions or anything, so then we would just need a motion.
This is Sandra. I move to approve the consent agenda items as written.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Dwight.
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Like Michael has his hand up.
This member of the board really appreciates the staff's work in this incredible volume of work. And so looking through the report, I'm so appreciative for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the next order of business is an opportunity for public comment. If members of the public are interested in speaking, if you use the raised hand, otherwise we can proceed. Madam Chair, I don't think our attendees want to make formal public comment at this time.
Yeah, we can continue.
Yes, ma'am. Next item is the delegate reports for both the PT Compact Commission, which is the first item, and the Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy. Sherry is our current Compact delegate. I can turn it over to Sherry for highlights and updates.
Hi there. So I don't have much update from the compact. There haven't been any new states that have been issuing compact privileges. As Michelle has listed there, Jeff Rosa, who is the compact commissioner, sent a letter to our Oregon Medicaid director, basically on the 6th of March, basically kind of informing them about the PT compact and that we have the PT compact in Oregon and that, compact privilege holders are recognized and that they're asking the department to recognize physical therapists and PT assistant compact privilege holders as being fully authorized under the Oregon PT Practice Act to practice and be recognized as qualified providers for Medicaid. So that was just sent a week or so ago. That's it. That's my only compact update.
Thank you, Sherry. For the Federation of State Boards of Physical Therapy, on those reports, there are some highlights there. Do either of the current delegates want to make any additional comments?
I don't have anything additional. Is anybody going to the regulatory training?
Yep, we do have 2 members, and I will also be attending.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions on any of the items from any of the members? Okay. The next order of business is the election of new delegates for this next year for all 3 of the roles. At this time, we had put out the call for folks to start thinking about their availability and interest in the various roles. For the Federation delegates, it does require the ability to attend specific in-person meetings at various times of the year, which was part of the requirement for serving as a delegate. What we would do at this time is double check to see who's interested in which roles and how many people are interested in the same person, if more than the same position, if more than one. If only one person is interested in each of the roles, then we can consider a motion that would move forward the slate of candidates as a single motion. If we do have folks that are interested in the same position, we would first need to have, in effect, a vote on the candidacy to establish the slate and move that forward. So the first order of business is to determine who is interested in serving as the Physical Therapy Compact Commission delegate.
If no one wants to do it, I will do it.
Michelle, am I allowed to say something?
You're the current delegate, yes.
So I'm the current delegate. Erin was elected this year to the Compact Compliance Committee. So I personally think it might be a good idea for Erin to do it. Sorry, Erin. But
yeah, I wasn't sure if that was part of me becoming that, so I didn't say anything. So I didn't know. But yeah, I will just say I also had an interest in becoming the alternate delegate for FSBPT, so I don't know where that plays as well. So I'm fine with whatever you need me to do.
There's no in-person requirement for anything to be the compact.
Okay.
You just have to, there is one meeting, this year was about an hour or 2 after our annual meeting and then reporting back to the board. But since you're going to those meetings already, it might just be,
okay,
make sense.
Happy to do so. Thank you. I wasn't sure where I fit in with that. Thank you.
So why don't we, I can go through the 3 roles and anyone who has interest can express that. And then if you all want to, remove your name or change the consideration, we can do that before any kind of vote. in case you have other considerations. For delegate, for FSBPT, I know Michael has expressed some interest, if that's still accurate. Okay. Is there anybody else who would be interested in the delegate role?
Michelle, can you say what the delegate has to, like where they have to attend?
Sure. The delegate has to attend both the Leadership Issues Forum, and typically held in July. And the specific dates for all of this were sent out to all the members for consideration, as well as the annual meeting at the end of October in this year. The alternate delegate is only required to attend the annual meeting at the end of October. Okay. Not seeing any additional hands or head nods. So moving on to the alternate delegate, I did note that Aaron has expressed interest in that role. Is anybody else interested in the alternate delegate role at this time?
I would be interested in that if Aaron's gonna take the compact role for that.
What we would have at this point is we would have if it stands as possible, we have Sandra and Aaron who have expressed interest in the compact position. And
I want to take that out. I was just stepping up because it didn't seem like anyone else. So I want Aaron.
Okay. So we have one candidate, Aaron, for the compact commission role, and currently 2 expressions of interest for the alternate delegate role. You can serve in both the compact and the federation delegate role, so that is allowable. Aaron and Susan, do you both want to run for the alternate delegate?
I still have an interest. So, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I can back out. Aaron can do them both, so that's okay.
Okay, are you sure? Okay, seeing a head nod. So with that discussion, that would create a slate of candidates as Aaron for the compact commission delegate role, Michael for the federation delegate, and Aaron for the alternate delegate. And so any motion would need to identify the slate of candidates by name. And Sandra, you might be on mute.
This is Sandra. I move to elect Aaron as PTCC delegate, Michael as FSBPT delegate, and Aaron as FSBPT alternate delegate.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Aaron,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
I
Erica,
Aye.
Dwight.
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
As the administrator, I will, after the meeting, follow up with both of those organizations to announce the appointment of delegates. And those organizations will reach out to you within those delegate roles. Okay to proceed, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The next order of business is our standing item for strategic plan progress review. We touched on briefly that we had reached the end of our prior multi-year forecast that was 2018 to 2023, and that we're moving into the work that we're doing for the next period. We had been delaying a little bit the formation of the new plan, as you recall, with the governor's release in January of this year of the standard agency expectations, one of which relates to strategic planning, and wanting to move all state agencies into a standard format for strategic planning and the presentation of their strategic plan for the benefit of the public. I had mentioned previously some of the other work that is expected to dovetail into this. We do have the expectations for the formats and some of the pieces that they want to have as part of the documentation. So the objective is that would be probably the primary focus for the next meeting, which is scheduled to be an in-person meeting, to go through and do strategic planning work and seek input and do some of the preliminary projections for this time frame, the SWOT and PASTEL analyses that are part of that work. With that, I don't have any other substantive work because of renewals. Any of the strategic items that have been objectives that we've been working on have been somewhat on hold because of the need to focus on renewals. So there aren't any other updates, but I can speak to anything else on this topic or kind of what to expect. Okay, then I would just say what would be really great is to start thinking long-term about trends that you're seeing in your roles as members of things that may relate the work, impact the work of the board or other resources that you think would be helpful. You can send that to staff so that we can help compile that. And we will probably begin sending out some information ahead of the next meeting, which is in a couple of months after renewals close for some preparation. So there may be some additional reading materials that will be necessary ahead of the next board meeting. So you may want to budget a little bit more time than you typically do in order to do that work ahead of the meeting. With that, Madam Chair, the next item is just the open roundtable.
Okay.
If anyone has any topics or items that they wanted to share or identify for putting onto a future agenda, Madam Chair, I'm not seeing any indication of any other business under this item.
Okay, next.
The next item on the agenda, we had initially listed the consideration of rulemaking related to the compact rules. This was an item that we expected to have further along and have information prepared for you relating particularly to other clarifications in rule relating to compact privilege holders. That body of work was not able to be completed ahead of this meeting. So this item will need to move to a future agenda. Any other questions on this item? Okay. Seeing none, pardon me. The next item is also rulemaking, and this relates to two rules related to requirements for graduates of non-CAPTE accredited education programs. These are the rules that the board, got a lot of input on in the development from the Rules Advisory Committee that created the existing temporary rules that are in place. And at that prior meeting last year, the direction was for us to simultaneously initiate the permanent rulemaking process using the same language that was put into place in the temporary rule. That permanent rulemaking notice was published. There was no additional public comment on the permanent version of the rule. And so before you today would be consideration of adopting the permanent rule to make those changes from the temporary rule permanent.
You need a motion?
If there's, yes, if there's no question or discussion. And it doesn't look like there is, Sandra.
Okay, so I make a motion to adopt as written OAR 848-010-0015 and OAR 848-010-0022. As written
This is Hoku.
for a permanent rule.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Sorry. Erin,
Aye.
Sandra,
Aye.
Hoku,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Erica,
All right. Aye.
Dwight.
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted and the motion carried unanimously.
Yeah.
The next order of business on the agenda is the item E3, the 2024 legislative short session. The we will give a brief review at this meeting, in part because staff are still evaluating and tracing everything that happened. Short sessions go essentially a month, but I have thousands of bills that have gone through and gotten to different stages. So we haven't been able to complete our full analysis to make sure that we've tracked every change yet, but we'll have that available for you. I can give you some of the highlights today based on the legislative concepts that we had reported on at the first January meeting of this year. There was a bill that became House Bill 4071 that in the legislative concept I had previously reported had proposed creating a temporary permit for anybody with a active license and good standing in another jurisdiction that would have granted them a permit for up to 1 year while they were completing Oregon application requirements. That bill evolved and had, I believe, 12 or 15 different amendments and morphed into a proposal that would have created a task force to study particularly health licensing boards and to determine if there were effectively better models than the ones that currently exist, or ways to where there are boards that have longer approval timelines or requirements that take the applicants longer to be able to prepare in order to be qualified to work, which could be an internship or similar. If there's a different way to make the licensing process as efficient as possible while still achieving the appropriate controls for public protection. It's all being motivated by the healthcare professional workforce availability crisis, particularly in some states or some parts of the state more than others. That version of the bill didn't ultimately move out of the Ways and Means Committee, but there was significant discussion at the House Health Policy Committee in which the bill was first chambered. The chair of that committee has made clear during the public testimony and work sessions that he intends to bring the health boards to one of the upcoming legislative days, which are when the legislature meets in between the formal sessions, to effectively accomplish the goals of what would have been that task force, to report out on what we do and the type of timelines or key performance measures that we have to start the discussion of how we may be able to do things better. That may very well lead to the generation of a bill in the 2025 session from that committee. The next legislative, they haven't made clear which legislative days they're going to request that the boards respond and present. The first possible legislative days have been scheduled at the end of May, and then the next ones would be in September. So we may need to present or prepare as soon as May to be able to speak to what we do and how we do it. The other piece of that work is that there were several amendments to that bill that had to do with introducing compacts for other professions. There has been a lot of building interest in the legislature for almost every other health profession adopting a compact. Now there are, and so far, we and the emergency response technicians, I believe, are the only two medical compacts that are in place at this time. There are, with many of the compacts, there is language in there that may pose constitutional concerns with the Oregon Constitution that can become barriers. And there's some differences in how their compacts work. And I'm going into the detail about that interest, even though it's other professions, because what's beginning to happen is there is strong legislative interest in knowing more about how the physical therapy compact has been working and how that has or hasn't impacted Oregon licensure and availability in workforce. So as those conversations about other professions adopting compacts, they are starting to reach out to us to get that background information and what this board, how you feel, how effective it's been. And they're looking for some data to show some comparisons so that they can maybe estimate for a similar compact what the costs of operation may be, for example. So even though that particular bill didn't pass, there is going to be work, and there will probably be bills in 2025 that relate to something around licensing for healthcare professions. Any kind of questions on any of that material?
Hi, this is Michael. I have a thought just to say out loud. Sarah has presented wonderful information to us about the geographic maps related to workforce data. It seems like it would be of interest to know, especially for rural settings, like what the component of people with a compact privilege are in rural settings and how that might be meeting or not meeting the needs for rural.
Michael, thank you for that question. And I have to say it is a question that currently does not have an answer. And one of the primary reasons for that is that the current healthcare workforce survey that licensees get to complete during the renewal process is only administered at renewal. That's an artifact of the statute that the legislature put in place. And so what's missing from the data that Sarah has used for the geographic distribution and that analysis is what we don't have is the same level of detail of information on our new applications. Now, Sarah has been able to mine our own data to give us some information based on what a licensee reports at application, but we know that sometimes they may move more quickly than we have their information. Whereas the healthcare workforce survey is intended to be a single point in time of everyone and to know this is where they are at the instant that is taken. Compact privilege holders are a whole nother, currently a black hole, because they're able to purchase compact privileges that is through the PTCC separately. We do ask for their information, but they move very quickly. And they may come here on a rotation, leave, come back. We're also seeing a trend where they're never actually physically in Oregon, but they have purchased a compact privilege to work via telehealth in some way to treat patients in Oregon. So it's a great question, and definitely from a strategic standpoint, it's certainly, those are both populations that if we really want to understand the current workforce more than a snapshot every 2 years of a subset of the population, it means that we should consider other types of surveys specifically for privilege holders, for new applicants, maybe at that single point of time, or maybe even at the same time that we're capturing renewals. So kind of a long-winded way of saying we don't have that information yet, but it's absolutely, I think, necessary and should be considered going forward.
Thank you. Complex.
Anything else on that area? The other highlight that I will give is there was an omnibus bill that I had mentioned that Senator Denborough had moved forward that had one section that related to a pre-qualification option for future applicants to be able to request of the board an evaluation of their criminal history and whether or not that would be a barrier to licensure in the future. The intention of the senator is to allow folks before they invest what is often very significant investment in education, that they can determine if they would even be able at the end of that process to qualify for the license. And that is one of the pieces where we need to do a lot of analysis to understand exactly how that would work and what the process would need to look like. And that did apply to all health boards, so we'll have some broader conversations to be able to determine how best to do that. We will probably also need to seek direction from the DOJ to fully understand the language, because it appears, at least on my read, that folks who would submit in effect an application for pre-qualification determination would have the same due process rights and contested case hearing rights as any applicant, is what may be the case. And so we want to make sure that we build the processes and the structures to make sure that that we're doing it right. So we need more information and more analysis to that. One way or another, whatever it looks like, it's going to need to be a whole new in effect application, which will have implications for IT systems, likely, or some alternate pathway that we would set that up, potential fees, and then processes and tracking, and of course the rulemaking to codify all of that into rule. There were some other things that related to general government that we had been following. There was some clarification on public meetings law, where there were significant changes in the last session, where the authority to enforce laws relating to public meetings was moved to the Oregon Ethics Commission. But the Oregon Ethics Commission did not have the statutory authority to actually give training or do anything in that area in their statute. That was fixed in this session. They are going through a process of rulemaking and building out training, which will then be something that we'll want all staff and board members to go through to make sure that we are fully compliant with particularly all of the newer requirements with public meeting rules. So some records and rulemaking and general sort of government processing. That's what we're also compiling and can bring forward to you on a little more detailed list at a future meeting. Any kind of questions on those? Permission to move forward?
Yes, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Well, we've been referencing renewals quite a bit here. It's pretty much what we're living and breathing, particularly at this point in the 3-month renewal season. I want to talk a little bit about the work plan and just a notation about the extended hours that we are offering in some ways by creative division of duties and how we renew a single application to be able to do pieces of it in what are traditionally after business hours and then be able to do follow-up on any kind of renewals that are incomplete upon submittal during business hours and some other follow-up. With that, the first highlight is at the last meeting, the board directed us to develop a postcard because we are increasingly seeing concerns that emails that folks may not be reading them all. And then there are some concerns with certain systems and the spam or junk filters that have maybe in the last year gotten a little more aggressive. And then folks don't see things that have gone into junk folders, or in some cases, particularly in workplaces, email may be screened as spam and they're not even aware that it came through. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware. You directed us to send out a postcard to make sure in, if you'll forgive me, an old school, physical object sent to people that they could put on their refrigerator. And so Sarah put together some graphics and this was the postcard that went out to licensees that, as it says here, as of February 26th, had not yet renewed. To give them the information, QR code that took them into the requirements and more background information. And then on the cover, we tried to highlight that deadline of March 31st. There was a little bit of a glitch in that there was a printing error that related to license numbers. So some of the numbers got discombobulated in the printing process. But it's actually been kind of a great test to see how many people have read it closely to do that. And we've put out some messaging to help them understand that was just an error and that if their license number didn't look like their number, that it was just an error and there was no change done there. But I do want to give my appreciation to Sarah for doing such a great job in pulling this together. We did have one send to the office, and of course, the one that we got, there was a roller error from the printing from the post office, we think. But so if any of the licensees, board members who got one, for our archives, a printed copy without that, let us know. And then what I'm going to do for sort of the statistical piece of it is, Sarah, if I can turn it over to you to give us a brief snapshot of what we're seeing so far. And then just as kind of a teaser, we expect to have a lot of really great detail as a post-op at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Absolutely. So yeah, these are, like Michelle said, this is not your full renewal update like I gave last year. That one probably won't be until well, what is it now? June is the next meeting, or the July meeting. Not sure when we'll have all of those numbers crunched, but yeah, this is just to kind of give you a idea of where we're at. Oop, apologies, sorry. My phone went off. Only when I'm unmuted, right? Okay, you can go ahead, Michelle. So this is just a percentage of how many folks who hold a current active license have already renewed. Right now, it's about 54% of people total have renewed. The 15% that I called out there in gray is part of that drop off that we talked about, that but somewhere between 13% and 17% of folks don't renew each season. And so in looking at what the staff workload is going to be for the next 2 weeks, it's that 31%. That's not to say that, you know, it's going to be 15% drops off. It could be more, it could be less, but just to give you guys an idea of kind of where we're at right now and what we're anticipating coming up.
And Sarah, if I can just emphasize that part, that means that 54% of the current active licensees we did in 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good call out, Michelle. So yeah, we definitely anticipate that it's going to be all hands on deck all day, every day for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Moving on, I ran kind of the daily volume of how many applications have been submitted each day in comparison to the same time last renewal season. So that blue line is 2022 and that orange line is this year. So you can see it's pretty steady. They would have gotten, the folks who hadn't renewed yet would have gotten the postcard right around yep, that jump right there. And I could not figure out for the life of me why that line, that blue line kept, like, why did it break? Because 2022 wasn't a leap year. So there was no data on the 29th of February last time. So it was driving me nuts yesterday. But yeah, we're pretty on track compared to 2022. And then this year we added a few pieces on the back end for us to do more internal tracking so that we can really figure out where we need to add in education pieces for next year. And so as part of that, we added some internal checkboxes. So nothing that the licensee sees, but something that we can track a little bit more of categorization of when something requires additional work for a staff member, and ultimately additional work for the licensee as well. What kind of category is that? And so you can see this list of 4 types of issues. We narrowed it down to folks who took the wrong pain management course or didn't take the pain management course. The folks who had either an incorrect cultural competency course or didn't take a cultural competency course. Those are really our 2 big pieces that folks seem to have issues with. The other continuing competency issues, that might be where they miscategorized something and so then they don't actually get the full credit. You know, an example might be somebody who put 8 hours of general continuing competency for their CPR course. Well, we have it in our rule that they can only count 1 hour. So now they're suddenly 7 hours below, that sort of thing. And then all other issues, that would be folks who trying to think about what that might be. Folks who haven't taken the OHA survey, payment issues, that sort of thing. And so ultimately 91% of these renewals are click, click, click. We can verify their continuing competency. We see that everything's in order and we can approve them right away. But then there's that 9% of folks who, for whatever reason, require a little bit more staff attention and time. And I did break it down. I don't know if these numbers are statistically significant at all, but I did break it down between PTs and PTAs, and it does seem like there's a slight higher incidence of issues with PTAs. So that's just something that I thought we would, once we get the final numbers, maybe dig in and see if there's some additional education that we can provide specific to PTAs or specific to PTs if the numbers shift. So I think that's just about everything. Does anybody have any question? Hoku?
Sorry, right when you said that, I heard, okay.
No, you're fine.
Lower the hand. Okay, just a procedural question.
Sure.
Is it Sarah and Gayla going through every single one of our applications and like checking our CCs against, like, how does that work? How is that possible?
It's Michelle.
It's Michelle.
It's
Yeah.
Michelle.
Every time that I log in to look at the queue of which ones need to get done, I'm like, oh, Michelle was up at 5 a.m. doing them already. So generally what we've shifted to this year is that we are doing background checks after the fact, and we're going to do it in a more batch manner. In 2022, we did each one manually as they came in, and so that really slowed us down. So we have been able to click through them a little bit faster this time. But generally we're doing more of like a spot check, right? We're looking through the whole what's the word I'm looking for? Transcript, I guess you could say, the listing of all of the continuing competency courses, making sure that, do all of these names and categories line up? Is somebody trying to miscategorize a bunch of, project management courses as general continuing competency, but those aren't actually clinical. So we're kind of doing that spot check, and then we're checking typically 1 to 2 certificates per person to make sure that they're, in line with what the requirements are for certificates. And then if we see something off, then we check every single one on that one. But yeah, it's mostly Michelle.
Well, there's different pieces of it. What the work plan has been is we've been trying really hard to get every application submitted, have that initial review to determine if it can be approved or if it's going to need to go into the incomplete queue. Up until the 1st of March, that was pretty much just me and trying to work in the off hours so that by regular business hours, Gayla and Sarah and Sherry can handle what is a significant amount of work, which is the emails assisting folks with their questions. Will this count? I can't remember my password. I'm locked out of my account. You name it. Just managing that, the email and the phone questions that are coming in is taking multiple people. And I know some days, Gayla, Sherry, and Sarah, that is absolutely the bulk of what they're doing, and doing other things. So I have been the primary person working the off hours to keep things going so that they can then go in. Gayla has been primary on then handling that 9% of following up with folks in some cases repeatedly, to get them to complete their application so that we can approve it in time. As of the 1st of March, we did also bring in some temporary assistance that is working a couple of hours in the weekends and on weekends. But Sherry had mentioned that when you look at this slide, the you know, a little bit more than half of what we've done over the last 2 months, 2.5 months, we're going to do in 2 weeks. It's just going to be all hands doing a whole lot over time. But we will get there. So I think for anybody watching or watching the replay, please renew as early as you can. We are a little bit concerned because of the way the calendar has fallen this year that the 30th and 31st are Saturday and Sunday. The Sunday, the 31st, is also Easter, and for a lot of folks. And our renewals are technically open before a late charge until midnight on that 31st. So our work plan is also moving into, we've been working, some of us have been working every day, but particularly over the next, we're going to be shifting things so that we can cover the weekends as well. We are going to be sending out messaging to folks who have not renewed to make them aware that, Friday is the 29th, right? And we can't guarantee the ability to have their renewal processed by Monday, April 1st, if they don't get it to us by Friday, right? We will do our best to work with that, but if 31% of folks wait until the 30th, a Saturday, it's going to be difficult for them to have a license first thing Monday morning. So combination of additional work period. Sarah, because of the timing of when things turn over at midnight, we'll also be working a shift to make sure that everything turns over at midnight Pacific time, and then trying to do some triage in those early hours, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, to make sure that everything's in order and ready for the workday when we expect to start getting calls.
We have been working the weekends, not all day, every day on the weekends, but there's a lot of people who seem to get locked out of their account and send an email that says, I'm locked out, I don't know my password. And you do actually get an email back when you email the therapy box, and it has instructions if you get locked out. I think some people send that email and maybe then they get the reply and they figure out how to unlock themselves. But I know all of us have been checking in at least a couple times a day on the weekend just to see specifically if there's anyone locked out who's in a panic that's trying to renew at that moment. I also wanted to mention, because I know Noel is here, the APTA Combined Section Meeting is a very, very big education conference that many, I think it's 20,000 PTs all over the country go to, and it's in February, and they have said they're not getting the certificates of completion out until April. I don't know, Noel, if you have any contacts there. I've left 2 messages, voicemails, and an email with who they've told me to contact, and I haven't heard back from anyone at the APTA about, is there any way to expedite that or send an email to the licensees in Oregon, just because I think there are quite a bit of people probably waiting for that 18 hours of credit to come in before they can renew. So I've tried with them.
Do you want me to comment on that?
Yeah, if you have a comment, that'd be great.
That is the first I've heard of this, so I could follow up and find out with Jeremy Hilliard and see.
I did talk to Jeremy. Jeremy and I.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I got a hold of someone at APTA who I was told was the person to talk to both times I called, and I haven't heard back.
Okay.
Person, yeah. But Jeremy is aware of it too.
Is of it. I'm not sure what next steps are for that, but I don't know my limited amount of influence in the association that I can pull something out. But I'll see what I can do.
I can understand someone taking a course late in March. We do get that question. I'm taking a course late in March, but this was February, so I can understand people thinking that they'd have the certificate by then.
Yeah,
it's a highly attended conference.
And thank you, Noel, for the comment. And our strategy has been, we of course don't want to penalize licensees because the qualifying certificate isn't being produced. So we are working with them to find alternate means to create the documentation, so that if they don't have the formal certificate yet, so they can at least qualify for that. Of course, and that may be that they get flagged for the audit so that they can provide the certificate later. But our intention is not to penalize anyone for the fact that the provider is not able to produce the certificate in a timely manner. Anything else on renewals?
Just a thank you for doing all that work. If there's ever a point where like you're accepting volunteers for any part of the tedious this process, sign me up, put me on the list. And then I wonder, like, is the conversation in general, like we hear a lot about AI coming, like I wonder if that could help this process at all in terms of like double checking. I expect that we'll probably see some like AI influencing like documentation in the next few years. I'm hearing kind of word on the street about that to streamline like a therapist practice. So anyway, I think that's probably going to be shaking up our world here soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna call out that Michelle actually worked on an AI presentation with our software vendor recently. And so I know that our software vendor who manages the database with us has a vested interest in looking into that. So yeah, very, very much, Hoku. You're right on track with I think what's coming down the line.
And that in the director's report, the education and outreach, it is listed there. That is a clickable link. If you had any interest in seeing that, or at least, scrubbing quickly through it, there are some highlights of how in regulatory processes AI could be applied. The other thing that I'll note is that we had intended for this process to already be more streamlined with the adoption of the new licensing software, which was why we were wanting to initially have that migration project happen before renewals. It would have allowed us to automate much more, but we didn't want to negatively impact licensees. And so instead, we delayed that migration project, knowing that meant that we had to have at least one more renewal period that was very labor intensive. And so that's part of why we are here. We didn't intend to be, but we wanted to err on the side of caution and not disrupt renewals or negatively impact licensees. So we're doing this now. But the new system, even without AI adoption, will allow us to greatly streamline this for the next renewal period. Okay, if there's nothing else, Madam Chair, proceed.
Yes.
The next item, and this is, there's one more item after this for calendaring, but this one is intended as informational. This was brought up at a prior meeting. Susan had mentioned that there was an ad placed by one of the community colleges relating to physical therapy aids and certification, and had asked us to look into that to get some more information, and asked us to put it on a future agenda to notice it so that you as the board could have a conversation. So this is a copy of a course catalog. And you can see here a screenshot. There is a notation for physical therapy aid certification at a cost of a little over $3,000. So I think this was the precipitating piece. So in looking at that, you could see that it's these are in the non-credit section of the course catalog, and you can see providers listed here, Ed2Go for the pharmacy technician, physical therapy aid, career step. So in looking at how this appears to be, I do want to put a disclaimer that this is based only on preliminary staff research. This is not intended in any way to be perceived as complete or necessarily 100% accurate, but just based on some preliminary research that we have done. So there are certifications for physical therapy aids that are put forth by at least 2 certification bodies. The first one is the NCCB, the National Career Certification Board. I was not able to determine who the accrediting body was for this entity that issues the certifications, but they offer certification programs in a number of health professions as well as other professions, such as, and you see the examples here, in their nomenclature, they have certification for a physical therapy aid specialist certification, or CPTAS. There is a link in the materials that would take you to there for more specific information, but from their website, this is the detail of how they list this certification exam. Prepares them for field of therapeutic services for a career as a physical therapy aid specialist. The certification gives you national recognition for employers that you are qualified to do that. Here they do list out that the aides are an important part of the professional physical therapy team, and it talks about where they are employed and that they are working under the direct supervision of physical therapists and their assistants or PTAs. And then a little bit about the kinds of tasks that they perform. So fairly consistent with PT aid. I think one note in this is that these are national bodies, and the regulation of PTAs and PT aids varies from state to state. So they also have sections on their website where they will clarify that the certification may not be accepted in some states, and that exam takers are required to make sure that this would work in whatever jurisdiction they happen to be in. There is no specific prerequisite for taking the certification exam. The certification itself in passing the exam is $175. There was another body that came up, uses slightly different nomenclature, physical therapy aid or physical therapy technician certification by the American Medical Certification Association, which seems to be the larger body. I was able to determine that they're accredited by the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. And you can see they offer similar programs. This is just an example of the types of programs that they have. And here you see their nomenclature, same scope, but different designations. From their website, this is how they describe the role of a physical therapy technician, as they call it. They talk a little more detail about the types of competencies of what the exam would cover. And questions, and then you can see that their cost is effectively $120. So in the certification era for PT aides, one of the sort of advantages or the way they're framing this is that there aren't any specific educational degree requirements. So that this is an alternate pathway to a profession or to employment in physical therapy in general, if the individual is not interested in going into the associate's degree path for the PTA or the doctorate program for PT licensure. In this, though, you see that the certification itself is effectively under $200. There are various companies that are offering prep programs, and those costs vary from in the hundreds to the thousands. The advert that you saw earlier was $32.99 for the prep program in order to take the certification exam. What you see listed here are those programs, just a few of them that are doing that special the prep training in order to get. Some of them may focus where an individual may have a GED or not have high school degree. And so it helps prepare some of the foundation courses so that they have the training and the education that they would need to successfully take the certification exam. And then just noting here is the link that went to the Rogue Community College, which is what relates to the first advert. And the one right above it is that there is here in Portland Community College also offers it through the other provider for the other certification program. And I meant to note it here, if I remember correctly, I believe theirs was at about the $1,100 amount for that. So that's kind of a high level primer so that all the members had some basis for discussion. The one note that I will give on that is that, of course, this body doesn't have any direct regulatory authority over educational institutions or the certification providers. But short of that, I turn it over to the board for discussion.
I just want to say thank, because was the one that brought it up. Thank you for doing that research and kind of clarifying all that's out there. Yeah, I mean, I guess in bringing it up was just a concern and I don't know where to go, like of public protection in a way of people being exploited by these businesses in the name of physical therapy for something that's just not required. And just so that's, I'm sort of processing all that you just presented, but wanted to say thank you for compiling all of that.
Of course. Sandra?
I was wondering who teaches these classes. Are they like online or are they taught by a physical therapist? Do you have any sense of that?
I did click through the one for PCC, Portland Community College. It did appear that the courses were online. I think that's true in the Rogue Community College case as well. PCC, it was listed as a PT. That was the sort of primary contact on the material. But it's not clear. I don't have any other visibility into the curriculum itself. It's more in the form of, some of it is more like the highlights you saw, like the percentages and anatomy, and then infectious control and some of those pieces, so sort of content. but a lot of it is directed to test prep in order to be able to pass the certification exam. Michael?
Yeah, thank you very much for doing the research. I agree with what Susan said. I'm just thinking about taking advantage of people and doing something that's not needed and then causing confusion amongst what happens in physical therapy. And I'm trying to think of like what's our role or what are opportunities for us. Just thinking out loud, like having something on the website about what's required to be an aide, like that's prominent. But then like my background, like my backstory there is how many people are going to go to the website when they're considering this kind of class. I wonder if something at the federation level, in having a disclaimer, it'd be nice if the classes, if they had a disclaimer that this is not required, state to state variations vary, or some sort of disclaimer about what's really required. Just throwing those two things out there.
We absolutely could on the website. Again, I'm not sure what the traffic would be from the individuals prior to that, but we absolutely could put up information about what requires a license and what doesn't, and kind of what a certification would be. That's something that we could absolutely, which frankly would be helpful for the general public as well, I think, to know those different roles. And we absolutely can raise the question with the Federation to see what other jurisdictions, what other states are experiencing. It did look through the One Provider career step, and they do have a map, and there are certain states where the certification isn't allowed. I wasn't really clear what that meant. My assumption is that there are statutes in those states that prohibit the use of sort of that standard certification, which means there's probably other licensing requirements at play in those states.
And I think if we did have something on our website, it would be like, what I would have in mind would be just something very simple, like physical therapy aides do not require a degree nor certification and must complete 40 hours of on-the-job training with each assignment, because it's not like the certification gets you past
You'd still
any
need
of
to do
that. So
Yeah.
And I think that a statement that also it clarifies that for our licensees that employ aides, like I don't, if someone would say, oh, I don't, didn't think I needed to complete that requirement because they have this certification, they've already done it, something along, the confusion for not just people seeking that as a career, but licensees in the state who might employ aides.
I think in general, it'd be a good idea to have something on the website, simple, just like Michael said, that talks about, like lists out physical therapist assistant, and physical therapist aide, like a definition, because I think a lot of people call aides assistants and a lot of people call assistants aides. And I know a lot of the phone calls I get is they're wondering, is this a licensed person, or how is this person trained, and what kind of supervision do they require? So even just like, this is what a PT is, this is what a PTA is, and this is what an aide is, and this is the training and supervision all three need. I think that actually would be very helpful.
And just to clarify, we as a board or as an agency don't keep demographic information on aides and techs, right? Because they are not licensed. Is that correct? So we don't have data around like how many we have in the state and that sort of thing?
That is correct.
Interestingly enough, the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually doesn't separate them out even. So it's listed as physical therapists, assistants, and aides. And so, yeah, even trying to get at that data from other sources is going to be tricky, unfortunately.
And I think part of that is that particularly with the PTA license, it is not a license in all states. In some states, it's a certification, and kind of the scope of that varies still pretty considerably. Okay. So we will definitely reach out to the Federation, and we'll also work on messaging on the website to kind of make clear the differences between the different roles, and then the license requirements or lack of requirements for the different roles. Thank you. Next on the agenda, I had referenced this at the end of the last meeting. We do need to reschedule the May 17th in-person meeting. The new date that we are proposing is June 5th, which is a Wednesday. This is an all-day in-person meeting. So because the board adopts the annual schedule, we would need a formal motion to reschedule the May 17th date to the 5th of June.
Is this also being held at a different place? Like what didn't?
Yes, ma'am. Good question. The board meeting would be held at the offices of the Oregon Medical Board, actually, in part because they already have a great setup for having hybrid meetings, since we will still be offering that hybrid ability for public anywhere to be able to watch the live meeting and to take the recording. They graciously are offering up their board room to other boards to make use of. It is still in Portland. It's about maybe 2 miles. It's on the other side of the river. We will send out and post the information, but it's in the South Waterfront area near Public Light Rail, and I believe it's 1500 Southwest First Avenue. But we will post that on the site and send it out to members.
And if anyone who's traveling needs help with where to stay, let me know and I can help you.
I will say a couple of members actually had attended a training a year or two ago on trauma investigation. So it's in that same room.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
This is Sandra. I'd like to propose a motion. I move to reschedule the May 17th, 2024 meeting to June 5th, 2024.
This is Hoku. I second the motion.
Erin?
Aye.
Sandra?
Aye.
Hoku?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Dwight?
Aye.
Madam Chair, all members have voted. The motion carries unanimously. And with that, oh. Dwight?
Well, I just realized that's Rose Festival week, but it has nothing to do with anything. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
Maybe that means we'll have more members of the public who stop by if they're in the with that, Madam Chair, we have no other business unless anyone else has any item.
But Dwight, that's a good point to maybe book a hotel room ahead of time.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So with no other business, just highlight, and here's the address, the next board meeting, and the link for members of the public. If you're watching, you can always go to our meetings page on the website. Links to meetings are posted the day of, and then posted to YouTube after the fact. That, Madam Chair, I turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. The time is 10:09 and the Oregon Board of Physical Therapy is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.